Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the stream. I hope everybody's well. It seems to be some very vibrant chat going on for a while, since before even streaming. So, it's been a couple of weeks. I do apologise for that. That has just been down to returning to work after Christmas and being absolutely rushed off my feet. I wasn't quite sure if I was going to stream tonight, to be quite honest, but I thought, well, why not? Not at all sure what we're going to do. One of the suggestions I might have is we can have a look at something on Prime. I don't know if anyone is actually kind of missing or doesn't have Amazon Prime or something like that, but we can have a look through that in a little while and see if there's anything that you would like to watch. If not, we'll just go through what I actually have presented on the screen, and we can sort of point out a few films and have a little bit of a chat about those as we see them scroll down the screen, stuff like that. I think it'd be a bit more interesting than it sounds, but because there were some interesting films I've watched over the Christmas and New Year period, and for all the railing I do against digital streaming media and that kind of thing, there are uses for it, because you get this access to a whole bunch of films and that are kind of just you wouldn't spend money on, generally speaking, and it's quite fun sometimes to go through those things and just go, yeah, fuck it, we'll give it a go. And, you're not lost anything other than, maybe 90 minutes if you hang all the way through it. Richard says, rip Meatloaf. Yes, I heard about that. I'm more gutted than I thought I would be. I've never been much of a fan of the music, but I thought the guy always struck me as a rather wonderful person. I always recall kind of like seeing interviews with him where they'd bring up, the kind of, for want of a better word, the haters, the detractors of Meatloaf. And he always seemed to have fun kind of playing with that, as do a lot of the great kind of, rock and roll stars. And the best ones have always been the ones that kind of play with the criticism rather than kind of get bent out of shape. Kieran says doesn't have Prime. Okay. Well, I mean, what we'll do in at some point it is just basically, we'll find it, and we'll give if we find a film that we want to watch, then you can see if you can find it on Netflix, yada yada yada, whatever, or if you've got it on DVD. But we'll give everyone a little bit of a chance to kind of see if we can find a version of it. Lamps, have you seen Don't Look Up yet? I don't think I've seen that, no. Heard Meatloaf was a man in the mould of Jimmy Savile. I've never heard that. I've never heard a bad thing about Meatloaf, to be honest with you. I sincerely hope not. I mean, there was never any kind of discussion that I saw, unless it was just one of those kind of rumour things that tend to happen. It's the whole kind of Richard Gere and hamster up the arse kind of talk sometimes, obviously. But, I've no reason at this point to kind of celebrate the death of Meatloaf. I think it's quite sad at the moment. Absolutely, if you can try and find, could try to find something on YouTube. If people want to make any kind of suggestions, then if we get to a point where we sort of go, yeah, let's go and have a look at that. Yeah, had enough, whatever. Let's watch a movie. I know we haven't watched one for a little while now, but see, I would suggest Below Man, since it's on YouTube, but no one's heard of it or its director. I've never heard of that one. Yeah, something on YouTube like, no, not Calamity of Snakes. We're not watching Calamity of Snakes, Richard. I'll be very, very desperate if I start suggesting we watch Calamity of Snakes. I thought that was pretty reprehensible. Even if it was true, I wouldn't celebrate that. I would hope not. So I mean, I've been kind of I think I sort of said in the New Year's stream I've been playing a lot of retro games and things like that, and I've just started replaying Splinter Cell. So I'm going to go through the crikey, let's try not to drop them all. Going to try and go through the whole lot of the PS2 ones, and some of these I've got on PC as well, and I've got the kind of sequels to that. Splinter Cell was quite an interesting one when I was growing up, and it's just such a different game to just about everything else. So currently, I'm infiltrating the CIA base in it, which is not even halfway through. It feels like quite a substantial game. From the days when Ubisoft weren't considered to be complete and utter tits and nasty, nasty people. Of course, we're not talking about the actual devs themselves, we're talking about the management and the corporate structure. Which seems to be a very common thing. Of course, now Xbox has bought Activision Blizzard, which has rattled Sony's shareholders somewhat, and it's like, holy crap, the whole thing's just getting nuts. And it's a bit crazy as well, because all these companies, see, back in the day, it's like with the old VHS films and all that kind of stuff, they were all little independent concerns, teeny tiny little companies that were doing this stuff, and it's just like, now it's kind of gone into bigger and bigger corporations, and it's become rather soulless. So I mean, I've just spent some money on a Crash Bandicoot Wrath of Cortex on PS2, and I picked up Resident Evil Code Veronica a little while ago as well. So I've got plenty of games to play. I'm good. So I said, so what about Cannibal Holocaust? We could do Cannibal Holocaust if you want to do Cannibal Holocaust. I think that is on YouTube, isn't it? Let's have a quick look. If everybody's interested in watching Cannibal Holocaust, we can certainly do that. I think we've done it before, but that wouldn't... Just trying... Oh, yeah. Mind you, that might be a heavily doctored version. There's a version on there. There's podcast. I don't know. I haven't seen any Kerry today yet, have we? Is Kerry in the house? Possibly not. What are we saying? Crazy, right? You've been to. Why hasn't Cannibal Holocaust been remade? There's not really. There sort of has been in some respects, but for the most part, I think they couldn't really make it kind of shot for shot in terms of there's all the animal deaths and all that kind of stuff. Sure, they could remake it, but I don't know. I don't think anybody's really kind of felt it necessary, and I think it would be quite a difficult one to really replicate and make worthwhile. Not that stopped people. Certainly, I mean, the original is considered to be so damn egregious, even to this day, by many people, that remaking it would be quite tricky. Although Eli Roth, obviously, with Green Inferno, did a sort of, at least, homage to Cannibal Holocaust. Talking to Kerry on Facebook now. Okay. Probably busy. We've all got little things going on in our lives. There's a lot going on in my life at the moment, and potential changes and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, we've all got our little things to do, haven't we? Cannibal movies are hardly popular anymore. You get the odd one, but that's a rarity. See, I think I think it's mostly because it seems to be, for most people, it seems to be a very shallow genre. There's not a lot of it, and certainly it's a very kind of dated genre in some respects. But I think if it was done well, it could actually be an interesting one anyway. Hello, Liam. So I tell you what, let's have a little bit of a fertile around and see if we can find something for that. Let's hopefully this won't cause any problems me doing this. I'm going to put my headphones on so I can actually see it, and I'll try and talk as we go along. No, that won't do any good. It sounds as if it's kind of like a Spanish language version. It's very weird. I don't think we're going to find a copy of that anyway. Check this version out. No. No. It's like a link of video. You went to see Scream 5 the other day. It wasn't good. To be honest, I mean, it's so played out, isn't it? It's like you can only sort of turn in on yourself so many times before you disappear up your own arse. You don't get the Scream series. I thought the first one was a decent film. Second, it just diminished as it went along. It's like, right, okay, yeah. But it's always a problem when you start doing all that kind of like super meta stuff. It really quickly can become tiresome. But yeah, you know what? Let's have a look and see if we can find alien contamination. There's a possibility. We could potentially watch Alien Contamination. Can't remember if we watched that before, but that's one option. Tombs of the Blind Dead. That's an idea. Let's go and have a quick look at that. Tombs of the Blind Dead. It's totally professional and prepared I am, aren't I? Right, so there seems to be two different versions of it. Come on, are you in English? God, it sounds like a Jess Franco film. It looks like a Jess Franco film. I can't find a bit that's talky. There we go. Well, there's an option. You love contamination. Directed by the worst. Are you talking about Tombs of the Blind Dead there, Kieran? Oh no, what are you talking about, Kieran? I got no idea. But anyway, so there's a couple of options here: Alien Contamination, Tombs of the Blind Dead, and a Serbian film. Well, if you can find a version online, I'm happy to sit for it. I haven't watched it in a while. Talking about James Franco. I was going to say, I thought it said Jess Franco. There was a really good article on Jess Franco's music and stuff like that, which was done by Tom, who kind of follows me on Facebook and I assume watches the videos and stuff. There's a link on my Facebook page to it. It's quite long. It's in depth, but it's kind of fascinating. And on the strength of that, I actually went out and bought a Jess Franco jazz album, which is not a euphemism. Serbian film is my favourite. Is my favourite Serbian film. It's pretty much one of the only ones. We'll look at it. It looks like Alien Contamination might be quite a popular one. So we'll kind of look to getting on that, and maybe do Tombs of the Blind Dead. Maybe next week. I should be streaming next week. So what I'll do is just plonk that in the chat and see what's going on. Right. So if you get yourselves kind of like hooked up onto that one, and then yeah, we'll have a look at it. I think many of us would have seen DWN? Devil's Wedding Night. Okay. Jess Franco achieved what no one else could. He killed Fu Manchu. Oh, bless him. Yeah, I know you're not a fan, Simon, but for all the guy's faults, he did add some gems in there as well. And it was just genuinely, I mean, even if you hate every one of his films, his career was fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. To see, how he got into films, how he had to work, and the kind of approaches he took to kind of making a living out of doing that kind of stuff. His photography, when he had good equipment, it's like, wow, okay. Oh, it's a Canon film. You can't go with Canon. Why? What? Yeah. I'm gonna have a sip of beer because I haven't had a sip of beer yet. That's tragic. I've got a little bit of Abertale. I don't want to say bog standard, but it is a good. It's a good basic beer. Superstition is a solid video. Yeah, I've got the VHS of that knocking around about there somewhere. Imagine if Jess Franco had played Cartman in a live action South Park. Okay. That would be an interesting, well, it's certainly a very evocative image. I don't think he's really kind of like the screamy type. I think that would be more Lucio Fulci would be Cartman. I love Franco's attitude of so what if you lose the shot, this wine won't drink itself. Okay. Oh dear. See, I don't think I've not seen all of the Fu Manchu films, Simon. I've seen both the Jess Franco ones and probably at some point one or two of the other ones. I can't remember how many there were, but I'd have been really young when those came on. I think I probably literally saw them last time when I was in Hong Kong on Forces Television or something. It seems to ring a bell. Superstition is beyond port. We've got a bit of a disagreement here. Let me just grab that. Now, I did review this quite some time ago, but I don't remember too much of it. I might have to watch it again some point, but there you go, in the BTC gold cover. I always thought these were a bit cheesy, but I've kind of grown to like the gold covers. I was not kind and didn't rewind. Oh, no, I did. I think I found Killer Barbies somewhere. That's actually... Oh, no, I mean, it's a film that kind of presents very, very rough and ready. In that respect, it's probably not that unusual for Jess Franco. I found it surprisingly good fun. There is a sequel to the Killer Barbies, and I've never been able to find a copy of it, unfortunately. Got Video Nasty Draconian Days, loved the trailers and intros on it. A few classics ones I haven't seen before that I want to watch. Yeah, I've got both of those up there. Really quite interesting. I believe Simon, actually, Dark Angel, kind of helped source a few. You have the original VHS, yes. I've got a few, because that was a little tricky to get hold of at the time I got this, I think. And it was going for a reasonable price. Yeah, I mean, the case is in pretty good condition. Could use a little bit of cleaning up, but yeah. So let's see if I can get that to. There you go. I've got cover scans of all my VHS somewhere. I think the most unusual one I've got is probably the Third Rock from the Sun 3D. but that's obviously not a video nasty. But I picked that up because it was a bit of an unusual one. Killer Barbie sequel apparently goes for about £50 on Amazon. No image for it, so be wary. Yeah, that's the point that I sort of go, I don't care if I get a bootleg. And I think there is certain provision in law that if you can't get hold of something like that for a reasonable cost, that you can justify copying for archival reasons, yada yada yada. Silent scream. Yes. Where's that one? That's up there somewhere. Yeah, it's up there somewhere. I shan't go digging for it. Or am I thinking Frozen Scream? I'm thinking Frozen Scream. Possession. That's the film I can't stand, Richard. Sorry, got them mixed up. Oh, right, okay. You see, I love the film Possession, although it's not a film I would watch like, day in, day out. I've got to be in the right mood for it. So it's quite a heavy going one, but it's got that kind of unreliable narrator kind of thing going on that I really do like. See, I don't find Possession totally bonkers. It presents as that because it's kind of like the mindset of the central character, Sam Neill's character. It's kind of like his world. So when you see the various weird things and extreme things going on, it's his kind of point of view. And that's actually sort of borne out by the fact that the director, it's another one of those films where the director was going through a messy divorce. So he was kind of exercising some demons, and Sam Neill's character was almost kind of like a proxy for him. Seen a few week back. Extra was on the Horror Channel. Yeah, Extra was a great film. I like it more than the director himself likes it. I got a great version of it, and I've said, most of you know, the version that I got was sent to me. I've got a couple of versions. I got it on VHS as well, but the Blu-ray that I got was actually sent to me by Harry Bromley Davenport himself. He emailed and says, "Would you like a copy?" And I went, "Yeah." But I'll probably actually, you know what? I think I'm gonna drop him an email at some point and just say hi, because it's been a while. And he is a genuinely nice guy. I really liked talking to him. Thing is, Glenn, you had to go at Sam for overacting in Omen 3. No, I don't really say I had a go at him. Did I have a go at him? I don't think I did. There's something about the way that Omen 3 kind of... it's more to do with how the story, what the story is, rather than kind of the people that are doing it. Sam Neill in Omen 3 is playing a character that is very, very aware of who and what he is, and it's a very kind of more cliche kind of presentation than you got with something like the characters in Exorcist 3, for instance. Comparing the two actually is quite interesting. The Omen and Exorcist series are quite fascinating in terms of what they are. And the Omen is... The first one's great. I've got a ton of respect for the first one. I really do enjoy the second one, and the third one gets a little bit kind of formulaic, to say the least. It's weird. It's like it's being something incredibly hyperbolic, and that's odd saying something about an end of times kind of story. That's one of those things that you sort of go, it's kind of a given, but it's told in a very almost comic book kind of way, I would say. And Sam Neill's character Damien in the third one is very I am the Antichrist, I am evil, therefore I will do this thing. Wahaha. And he's a bit moustache twirling, and that's not just Sam Neill's fault, though. That's down to the writing. Omen 2, easily best death scenes without a doubt, especially the elevator one's really cool. I think, certainly the young lad in Omen 2, some people have criticised him. I actually think he's really good in it. I think especially it's that transition, it's that journey that he has from essentially being quite innocent, even though he is the Antichrist, to kind of the realisation and then the kind of progression from that after that realisation of who he is actually quite fascinating. Yes, that is a good scene, Michael. If you want insane death scenes, just watch Patrick Still Lives. What was it I watched? I think I mentioned that. I certainly have mentioned on Facebook that I watched Doctor Sleep. I watched the director's cut version of that, and that was really shockingly good. I wasn't expecting to be anywhere near as good as it was. Some people sort of criticised it, saying it's treading old ground when it gets to the end, but it's sort of the point to a degree. But yeah, that was pretty good. Forget Everything and Run. I think I mentioned that last time. They describe it as The Walking Dead meets The Revenant, and that's actually probably a pretty good comparison. It's not great, it's not like amazing, but it is actually quite entertaining. The Sorcerers. Didn't we watch that relatively recently? I have got the link, by the way, but okay, look, what we'll do is we'll put it to a vote. It's either going to be The Sorcerers or Alien Contamination. So one for The Sorcerers, just type one in the chat for The Sorcerers and 2 for Alien Contamination. Get the chance to watch Nutbag. No, I haven't watched Nutbag. You know what? I'd give it its day in court. I've got nothing specific against the director. I thought the other film was not very good. Doctor Sleep 4K has only has the director's cut on Blu-ray for some reason. That's kind of sucks. But then again, I sort of go, I don't particularly need 4K. Some people, I guess, do if you've got a huge television. But yeah. The results are coming in. I don't know if there is a polling kind of app that you can put into YouTube. It's 3-1 at the moment for Alien Contamination, so push those buttons now, folks. Oh, crikey. I tell you what, though, I've been looking at my schedule for, until kind of like what seems like the end of bloody time, and it's got busier and busier and busier and busier, and it's like, yeah. Although, Gary, if you're watching, I will be up on the first Friday in February. So, heads up. I might even sort of pop up on the Thursday night. So any questions, just get in touch with me tomorrow. I know you're watching. You're always watching. I think we're kind of getting definitively on Alien Contamination. However, Richard, I think if you want to watch The Sorcerers at some point, we will watch that. Just remind me again closer to the time. 3. Kieran, you motherfucker. Oh, dear. had the misfortune of reviewing Nutbag many moons ago. Yeah, I'm guessing it wasn't that great. The director seems like a pretty decent guy, actually. Despite my very scathing review of his film, he was polite. So, all respect for that. You recently got Flesh for Frankenstein 3D. Oh, excellent. Okay, folks, I think we have seen The Sorcerers a while back, yeah. We can watch it again at some point. But I think tonight we'll watch Alien Contamination. Why not? But we'll give it a few more minutes. And tell you what, I'm going to share the screen for Amazon Prime and just point out a few films that were actually quite good. I might just need to add the chat back into this. So if I take that, copy that, and then we're going to sing to. There we go. If I oh, it's going to be interesting. There we go. Let's do that. There we go. So, it's my Amazon. So yeah, Doctor Sleep was pretty good. Although if you're going to go watch it on there, make sure you get the right version. There's a director's cut version down here, which is worth watching. That's Forget Everything and Run. Like I say, not the greatest film on the planet, but actually not bad either. Definitely will kill an hour and a half. Savaged was not a terribly well made film, but it was quite entertaining. It's a rape revenge sort of thing. Pretty standard. Goes along the normal lines of these kind of things. It had its moments. I didn't hate myself for watching it, but I can hardly say that it's a great movie either. You have Blood for Dracula. You want Frankenstein for sure. Yeah. What's with this streaming bollocks? I did mention it earlier. One of the good things about streaming is it does give you a chance to see a lot of stuff that you may not have bothered with. Because, frankly, Forget Everything and Run and Savaged I would not have bought on DVD. So I did get the chance to see those. And generally speaking, then if I like them enough, I'll go out and buy them on DVD or Blu-ray. Oh, one film I did watch just recently was The Suicide Squad, the James Gunn one, and I enjoyed the hell out of it. The ending's a little bit kind of off, but generally a very entertaining film. And mind-bogglingly violent. I actually really did enjoy the fact that it was quite so crazy. It was pretty cool. Let's see if I can. Have I got a camera on here? No, I haven't. Okay. Inbred I watched, which was just yeah. It's got a few moments which are enjoyable, but it's a pretty bad film. It's shot well and it's incredibly gory. Waz, is that a film? Just for anyone who doesn't know, Waz is a euphemism for pissing in England. Well, not pissing in England, but yeah, the euphemism from England. Anna and the Apocalypse. I've heard something about that, but yeah, I've not seen that. Obviously, we've got Dawn of the Dead, which is excellent. Shan't make you sit through that again. We did watch the super kind of long version, which was actually put together in part by the guy that's asking me to do a new DVD, new Blu-ray extra, which I'm kind of looking forward to making. So that would be my 5th one I'm going to be doing. I can imagine that I Spit on Your Grave is the cut version. It'll be the UK version, at least it should be. 31 is just terrible. I really, really wish I could find something in Rob Zombie's film for me to actually like. Inbred, it's a bit hammy. Yeah, it genuinely is actually quite a hammy film. Elevator, a film that could have been very good, but was absolute shite in the end of it. So much rubbish I've seen. Sometimes don't wish to watch. It's a gore film called A Fucking Cruel Nightmare. Oh, is it indeed? It's apparently is an Xmas musical with zombies. That might be quite entertaining. Room 237 is just like, well, it's the Alex Jones of film documentaries. Starts off relatively kind of grounded and then just loses any kind of sense, and you get these just increasingly cranky kind of people on the. Tried watching 31, just could not finish it. I struggled to sit through that. I had to actually, because I had to sit through all the Rob Zombie films that I hadn't watched for a podcast with Josh Hadley. It was on Radiodrome, and it was a retrospective. So there was about 3 or 4 movies maybe that I had to watch of Rob Zombies. Funny enough, Lords of Salem, although it's probably one of the more boring ones, is actually the most interesting in a lot of terms. I love Rob Zombie. He was the only one who had the guts to kill Michael Myers in Halloween 2. Fair enough. Didn't stop making more though, did it? I will be getting hold of the Suicide Squad on Blu-ray at some point. Apart from anything else, I want to do a screening at work with for my friends, because we got a big cinema screen and a projector, so that could be fun. So we'll just sit there, eat pizza, drink beer, and watch ultra-violent DC movie, which would be kind of fun. Wasn't Meatloaf in musical horror film? It was in Rocky Horror. Was recent slashing. Don't know about that. Cannibals and Carpet Fitters. This shows you how desperate. This is the bad industry. But at least you could say that at least films like that do get a little bit of a home to go to, don't they? You love The Devil's Rejects, Halloween, House of Thousand Corpses, and some of Halloween 2. I didn't like any of them. Even Devil's Rejects. Devil's Rejects is always the one that they that people kind of cite as being his best, and I tend to agree, but I still don't think it's a good film. I really don't. It's it kind of jerks you around in terms of how you're supposed to feel about the Firefly family. These rapists, murderers, kidnappers, and torturers. That suddenly in the second half you're supposed to kind of go, oh, end up killing them in to the strains of Freebird, which I thought was one of the most inappropriate uses of that. Which is weird, because you think if anyone could get the choice of music right for a film, it would be Rob Zombie. But apparently not. He just puts it in because it's cool. But you compare and contrast that with someone like James Gunn, who has a really, really good feel for kind of what music fits, and what is, not just with the mood of the piece, but with the theme of the piece, what's going on in his writing and stuff. So, because music in his is very much a character, it's not just a prop. And I always felt that Rob Zombie, although he chooses a lot of really cool music, there's very little rhyme or reason other than it's cool. But what are you going to do? Start giving me a thumbs up in a minute. Well, as soon as you can, if you're ready to start watching Alien Contamination. If I put the link back into the chat, and then we will get some thumbs up. We'll get started in just a few minutes. Oh, there we go. And no, I won't be showing it on the screen, obviously. So there's the link for you folks, and like I say, as soon as you're ready to go, we'll get cracking with that. I apologise. It's very kind of like it's a little bit all over the place tonight, but I've just been kind of like yeah. I just feel like my head's spinning from a really weird couple of weeks of work. It's all been a bit strange. There's a lot going on. Yeah, work at the moment has a tendency to do that. Your all-time favourite Meatloaf song is "Objects in the Rearview Mirror." I always found his stuff. I mean, it's quite deliberately so as well. I don't mean it's an insult, but it was always very overblown kind of music. It's very big and very operatic all the time, very theatrical. So I never really it never really resonated with me. But I was always very kind of. I always felt he was a very warm kind of guy. Right. What channel are you guys using? Oh, well, what, for alien contamination? It is Retro Drive-In, I believe. And it should be... It's not the greatest version, but it will do. So, if we go back to... there we go. Unleash the pods bursting out of people's stomachs, but not like in Alien, I think. Yeah. Are you alright there, Kieran? Can you find it? Let us know, and we will get started. In fact... I'm only about halfway through my bottle. I'm wondering if that's cut by 12 minutes. Is it really? Okay, let's see if we can find another one then. I do have one which is apparently it's got Portuguese subs. We can live with the Portuguese subs. It's a better version as well. There we go. I'll copy that. Shove that in the chat. I think that's the one I've just found actually. Yeah, that's the one I've just found. So there you go. Alright, okay, we'll go to the alternate one and then we'll get started in just a moment. It's cut by 12 minutes, but nice catch there, Kieran. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. The good news is I am very close to completing the ninth configuration review. That will be, hopefully, I'm aiming to get it done by the end of the weekend. And as much of that just depends on what energy levels are like and if anything else comes up for my weekend. But basically, I think I've got about another maximum of a page to write. I've written another page on top of what I've done. But I am edited up to where I've recorded, which is about 21 minutes. So that will get done. Straight after that, I will be kind of spending a bit of time writing, creating a DVD, Blu-ray extra for the film. I'm being a little cagey about which one it is because I'm not sure if I'm supposed to kind of say anything. But bear in mind, it's one of the Video Nasties and it's one of the more obscure ones. So hopefully that will end up coming out on the XS label. Ninth Configuration is a good film. It's a very good film. Some people don't think it is. Some people have said it's kind of messy. I disagree. I think it's actually a very focused bit of directing with a wonderful kind of unreliable narrator kind of thing going on. So yeah, is everybody happy with the new link? So if you are, just give us a quick yep, and we will get cracking in about 30 seconds time. I'm going to quickly grab a beer, so let me know while you're doing that. by the way, do you like the lasers? Excellent, you're ready. Is it a bit much? You can tell you, background blowing up with laser beams and stuff. I just dug it out and I've finally managed to find the power supply for it again, so I kind of went, yeah, okay, brilliant. So we'll go on the count of 5 and go on go. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Is contamination good? No, but it's a fun kind of bad. It's not City of the Dead bad, put it that way, but it is kind of fun. There is something about this era of Italian filmmaking that has this vibe. It is much better quality, isn't it? I need to turn that down a little bit. Yeah, it has this kind of vibe. Yeah. I think the Goblin soundtrack was probably stolen, Michael. Their music was basically stolen by a lot of Italian filmmakers. Just kind of grabbed it and used it. I know we ought to at some point. I can't remember if we watched it or not. I kind of got the feeling like a few years ago. But zombie creeping flesh, very similar in kind of tone in some respects, although a bit more light-hearted. But it's one of the Bruno Mattei films that I actually find amusing. But yeah, there's a certain texture to these kind of things. It's kind of weird that you can always tell an Italian horror film. There's this. Even like down to the font that they use on the credits, it's kind of always that feel. And to a certain extent, they were always trying to kind of capture an American feel, but they always managed to capture more of like a American TV action film thing of the 80s, and because visually it kind of feels a bit more A-team than it does like a big American action film. Oh, is that right, Kieran? Okay. Zombie Flesh Eaters opening, yeah. Yeah, like I say, I mean, so many of these films have feel very, very similar. Just visually, the color temperature is usually quite the same. That slightly soft sort of thing, and the kind of shots that they choose are often incredibly similar. It's kind of it has a real identity to it, and the Italians did a lot of that. They kind of they would magpie just about everything. That's me being polite and saying not stealing, but they'd pinch various ideas from the American market predominantly, but they always kind of felt Italian. It's like even like Dawn of the Dead, that although it's an American film, feels much more like an Italian production in terms of look and feel and all that kind of stuff. Which is why I guess it did well in Italy, apart from anywhere else. Abandoned ship with two crew members clearly talking to each other on the dock. Yeah. It might have been one of those times where they didn't have a film permit. It's kind of funny actually, because when it came to Zombie Flesh Eaters, that scene when they're kind of on the with the police at the very beginning, before the first boat zombie appears, they didn't have permission. They didn't have any permits. And those two guys were actually really cops. They bought their own uniforms because that would be a cheaper way to do it. So they were just kind of making a bit of money on the side. Ah. Being a cinematographer must be hard work, having to make sure blur effects don't crop up unexpectedly. To a certain extent, the colour palette is actually controlled post in development of the film and stuff like that. There is aspects of it which are in camera, but they balance it all up in post, even with the analog material of film. I actually quite like these scenes because it feels very real in terms of lighting. It looks a little odd when you watch it on a film, but this is kind of much more how you would expect it to look in real life with the way that it's lit. It's pretty much reflected light and all that kind of stuff from the beacons. Although they are using little theatrical lamps. Those aren't the sort of thing that you would generally carry around, and I'm wondering where the power supply for those things is. And you can tell that they're theatrical lights because they're holding them by the yokes, and that's where a hook clamp would be. And then if you look on the front, there's three little knobs on the front, which is where the gel filters would go into. So those were probably little lanterns that they just kind of improvised with that were actually just there for film lighting. So they'd have little portable kits that they carry around. I am wondering if they've just modified them to be battery powered. Little Fresnel lanterns. And now you know why I called myself Lampy Man. If I ever make movies, I want them to have a strong visual style, shot on film, Italian stuff-esque. I wouldn't get overly kind of hung up on the shot on film thing. It's a difficult and awkward process. I think it's as much to do with just kind of thinking about your visual style, what you're shooting, that kind of thing. There's something in my sock, hang on. There we go. Working with film is a difficult thing. It is a very, very specialist thing. It's like when, I've got my camera and stuff like that. Digital camera, obviously, but makes life a hell of a lot easier than using film. There's not an awful lot of advantage to using film unless you've got something very, very specific that you want to do with it. If you do, great. But mastering film is a very tricky process. Just did a week-long course about lighting. It's clear that movies use multiple light setups. Oh yeah, there's a bit. They're probably using a certain amount of reflectors and stuff like that, and bouncing it around. The light in the scene is very, very soft, and most of it's mobile. But you'll notice that the walls are all very, very kind of light in colour, so that encourages a certain amount of bounce light. Ew, guts, yes. It's with digital, you can't really capture the film stock look, which I absolutely love. Also, digital makes your action scenes more susceptible to looking like utter shite. It's not to say that digital doesn't have challenges, but there are ways and means of using digital that will make it kind of feel more like film. It's not to say that you shouldn't use film, but the challenges of using film are quite high, because you get into kind of one chance wonders, essentially. And you don't know what you got until you've gone and got it processed. things like that. You can sort of double up with digital as well to a certain degree, and kind of use that to help you check what it is roughly that you've got. But just one little mistake, you got your aperture open a little bit too high, or something like that, or there's something caught in the gate, and before you know it, you've got all sorts of problems. It's a funny thing is like Jess Franco, when he moved into digital film, he appreciated certain aspects of it, the fact that you could kind of see what it was that you got and stuff, and he was really quite pioneering in that stuff. He got into that stuff at a reasonably early point, for a professional filmmaker. And yeah, I mean the footage on that stuff doesn't look as great. He didn't have the kind of money to get a really really good camera, so it has more of a feel of GBH than like with modern digital film cameras and stuff. That was a very cheap jump scare. So it doesn't bother me in the slightest. Though, and like kind of like most jump scares, I'm like kind of. Argento turned to rubbish when he got into digital. Yeah, I think there's a number of things behind that, and apart from anything else, it is a very different cinematographic kind of medium. So there are different things that you have to do, but I think for the most part, when it came to like Mother of Tears and stuff like that, he pretty much abandoned a lot of the kind of just general visual approach, not just the medium that it went on to. None of it felt quite right, and there is a tendency to go like it's got to be high def, higher def the better, and that is not the case. For certain films it works, for other films it doesn't. So when you get these kind of over kind of like processed versions of films like the one we're watching at the moment, it never looks quite right. There is a nice aspect to the kind of softer look, obviously there is, but sometimes it's a positive thing that it kind of it hides the seams a bit. This is so cheesy. One issue with digital is the image and camera movements look too good. Oh no, I totally understand where you're coming from. It's a much sharper image, generally speaking, these days, and that was not always the case. There was a hardness to the early VHS image, where VHS digital kind of like when they're filming on recording on VHS, as opposed to just distributing it on it. There's a contrast difference and all that kind of stuff. And that's one of the things that film used to do much better, was it handled different contrasts a lot better. Yeah, it's a very slow motion. Bats have always been a challenge to Italian filmmakers. Oh, Simon. That guy looks about 10 times fatter than before. Yeah, there's a cheapness to a lot of the effects in this, to say the least. I think all it was like a bladder full of kind of gore, and then they kind of fired like a pressure container, like a fire extinguisher, out of it to force it all out. I don't think they had an awful lot of time to work on the effects. Should have gone for the crate marked mellow bits. Absolute maximum security. Must be serious. It came out through the 80s and 70s. Not a big fan of the digital look on films. It depends on the film. I think there are... the technology is refining. To the point that it's not as harsh now. But there's a couple of things going on. You know, there is the ever rising demand for higher resolution, which is, you know, it's got to the point of ludicrousy. You know, you don't need 8K. Why are we going down that path? Because unless you've got a screen the size literally of a cinema screen, then you're not going to get any benefit from it, really. Unless you're into zooming in, you know, pausing perfect freeze frame and zooming in for the dirty bits. So that's about the only potential advantage I can think of. It's one of the funny things with this film is the there's a bit of a clash in tones, isn't there, with the more comedic elements. Excuse me. When we get to the exploding rat, look close, you see an airline connector. Yes. It's one of the funny things, isn't it? So the BBFC were always very much like, people freeze frame and pause and reverse and and you make it so much worse. And it's like, the one thing it always did was blow the illusion, especially on films like this, especially on the films that they would generally complain about. Most of them just didn't do terribly well when it came to close examination. No ads on my end, but I do have an ad blocker. Thank you, Opera browser. It's a bit slapstick. Vinegar Syndrome have released their fourth Forgotten Gialli film, have they? I didn't know about that. I'm gonna put that page on. Oh my god, they're not cheap. That looks interesting. Yeah, you need an ad blocker for sure, Kieran, if you're constantly getting... It's a shame that, you know... oh my god, it's the night to say ni. It's a shame that that YouTube's really kind of allowed it to get to that situation where I used to be quite sympathetic to having ads at the beginning and at the end, but when they started putting mid-roll stuff in, it was just holy crap. BBFC were never the real bad guys. The problem was the government, various pressure groups, always forcing them to justify their jobs. To an extent, that's true, but there was institutional problems with the BBFC. Certainly, when you look from the beginning, they were kind of like when they were, you know, pre-video. There was a lot of stuff that they wouldn't allow. In fact, it's arguable that the BBFC were single-handedly responsible for killing any kind of British art house scene. Because it's one of those things. There's not much in the way of what you could describe as art house British films. Not like with America or Europe. Feusen Schwabby. Sciencing. Blu-ray prices are going through the roof in the States. Seem to be pretty much usual price around in the UK. I'm not quite sure why that would be. Though, you know, if I was being conspiracy minded, I'd say it's likely the studios making it more expensive to do physical media. The studios love digital delivery because they have far more control over it. It's called Explodo Juice. I'd say most Blu-rays in this country, generally speaking, have stayed more or less the same. You can generally pick up, you know, quite a lot of mainstream Blu-rays for like 10 quid. Should be about $13.5 US. Keep an eye out for the airline. It's one of the things I love about Simon. He's got such an eye for these details. Nice. We need more scientists. They didn't blow up that rat for science, they just did it for the lols. Mice lives matter. I've got a blossoming respect coming on. I need to freeze frame it. See, and people called me a nitpicker. A good catch. I love it when you kind of see these, when you can find those little bits. The one that annoys me the most is the Day of the Dead, when you see the rubber chicken come out of Rhodes at the end of it, near the end. It's one of those jokes that the SFX guys thought was funny, but it's kind of partially ruined the film for me. Talking rats, yeah. Watched. Did I talk about it last time? Watched Ben, because that's on Prime. It's like, good God, that's That's a fucked up film. Worst nitpickers of cinema scenes used to like them, but the content was just dumb jokes. Not yeah, it got old, didn't it? Really. It's fine. They do what they do, but there's only so much that I can take personally. Choke on them, squeak. Ben, I thought was just sort of very oddly. I mean, I found it amusing. Don't get me wrong. Uh, but the kid in it is a complete and utter little shit when it comes down to it. Oh, Ben, have you been eating people again? You mustn't do that. Hello, Collector Adam. Ah, out on the lasher. I got lasers. Can't guarantee they'll be there every week, but I finally found this power supply to my laser. But I need smoke in here. I need plenty of haze, so I might have to borrow the one from work at one time. It's quite a stylish shot, that, for what it is. It's one of the funny things when it comes to a lot of these types of films. People tend to kind of look at them as being trash and stuff. You often get those little moments where the director and cinematographer are kind of going, "I actually want to kind of like do something good at this point." It's like the Suicide Squad in Life of Brian, isn't it? Smoke or haze, HAZE. Got a haze machine at work, which is a real kick-ass one. Mind you, if I was to try and fire it off in here, my God, the fire brigade would be round in a heartbeat. It's freaking kick-ass. Michael Jackson did the theme to Ben. Actually, Michael Jackson didn't do the theme. He was given it to sing, but the Jacksons were given it. It was written specifically for the film, and the Jacksons were asked to record it. I believe Donny Osmond was also asked at one point, or at least was offered it at some point. It's just weird though. You got this film about this kid who has a deep friendship with a killer rat, and you've got this kind of sweet saccharine song kind of going on around it. It kind of occurs at quite a few points in the film. Can't make an omelette without breaking eggs, yeah. It's not exactly a cloud chaser, this one. Oh my God. Not sure what's more cheesy, the chat or the film. For science, we are showing you this close-up picture of a lava lamp. Notice the movement of the fluid. It has nothing to do with the situation at hand, but it is very relaxing. Hey, look, you throw whatever you can at it, Kieran. You're killing me. My chair's very creaky today. It's always the men. Always the men. The lady looks like Judith Han. Trying to remember exactly what she looked like. It's been a few years. It's the goddamn Martians. Yeah, I remember it's Tomorrow's World, but yeah, sort of vaguely. Maybe. It's been a few years. I think the last episode of Tomorrow's World I watched was probably late 80s at least. You gotta love the techno babble and things like this. Yeah. I kind of get the feeling they probably robbed the Doctor Who set as well. Maybe, the guy on the space shuttle that brought him back or whatever was doing like the old kind of colonial explorer type thing. Like back with the dodo and stuff. This is always amusing, is like you've got to have like certain locations when you're trying to convince people that it's an American film. It is one of those things. It's like when you get films like Living Dead at Manchester Morgue, which I always loved because it shows a part of Britain that isn't London. And isn't just like a major city and stuff like that. It's like kind of takes a very interesting, beautiful location, and you can tell it's still England, but it's not the safe option. I think it's one of the reasons why I resent London a little bit. It takes so much of the it makes up so much part of the identity of Britain when it comes to kind of like foreign eyes, and it's a place I really don't like. My friend sort of like said, you know, if you were going to work somewhere else, where would you work? And I says anywhere but London. Set more movies in Coventry, people. You know what? Why the hell not? It's what I would say. Leicester, Nottingham, Coventry, Birmingham. They've all got interesting things. Yes, even Birmingham. It's one of the things I like with, ironically, American Werewolf in London is that opening is kind of just fun because it's because it's not in London. Very different part of England with very different character, and that's a big part of it. I think is when you do these films, it's nice. Yes, you get the immediate recognition sort of factor of being in a familiar kind of or recognizable part of any given country. It's just usually the one thing that you think of first. But there's so many different opportunities which are afforded by being in different places, and that's like Living Dead at Manchester Morgue takes a very different kind of feel because of where it is. I read a story with that Ian McCulloch that he tried to hire zombie flesh eaters in the late 80s, was informed that it was banned. But I'm in it, was his reply. I hope that's true. I do love his commentary on zombie flesh eaters, actually. It's kind of fun. God, he beat Elon Musk to it. My psychiatrist told me so. Wonder what happened to Al Cliver. As far as I understand, he's kind of like on Facebook somewhere. Kind of just does conventions and things like that these days to make a bit of money. I think, if I'm not wrong in thinking, Al Cliver kind of does just very small stuff these days, small acting gigs and things like that, probably theatre and stuff. Oh, God damn it, Kieran. McCulloch is so wooden in this, they threw a stick of wood on the screen and could tell them apart. He's always fun. I don't, you know, I pretty much don't care what he's in. He's always entertaining enough. Al Cliver owns hotels in Bali, I heard. Okay. As I understand it, he's a really nice guy. I always found him one of the most flat actors on screen for the most part. But it is one of those things. He's always had that kind of visual presence, but when it came to the delivery of lines and stuff, it was always a bit flat. Get Carter set in Newcastle as a gritty northern atmosphere. Exactly. That's the thing, isn't it? Different parts of the country have such a different texture, and that's one of the things, particularly I think with Britain. Although it's a relatively small place, it changes rapidly depending on where you are. Such a wonderfully different feel from one place to another. I couldn't help but feel I was in a rip-off. Oh, Cliver, it's the art of acting without acting. Yes. Whatever I think of his performances, like I said, I mean, I've always thought he's got a really interesting kind of visual presence because he was just that kind of rugged, heroic looking kind of guy. From everything I've seen, kind of him outside of being in the film, he seems like a pretty fun guy. Mm. I do wonder if they borrowed those models or if they made them specifically for the movie. Hello, John. It's such a cheesy set, isn't it? I love how the door started opening just before she pushes the button. And it's also rather quaint that, this futuristic building requires you to push a button to open the door. Contamination and The Blade in the Dark are two of my legit guilty pleasures. Shite films, but I love them. Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I've always kind of tried to make the distinction between a film being a bad film and unpleasant to watch. No, there is a huge difference. Because when I say bad, I just mean sort of generally speaking in terms of things like writing and the technical aspects and acting and direction, stuff like that. But you can get a really badly made film in those kind of respects, and it can still be hugely entertaining. Look for The Offence. Your guilty pleasure movie, Blair Witch 2. Oh my god. Okay. From what I understand, it has some interesting aspects to it. Um, I've not seen it, but I understand it gets a bit meta. That annoys some people. It's a hell of a pep talk. Nothing quite as persuasive as allowing someone to, goading and allowing someone to slap you to get them to put their lives in mortal danger. I think we all have our guilty pleasures, don't we? I mean, there's more than a few of them up there. See, the Dawn of the Dead remake is one of those films I feel very meh about. I didn't think it was offensively bad, but again, like you say, it's not a patch on the original. It does have a few little interesting ideas in it, but I think it kind of lost its way some way into it. It doesn't really have an awful lot of the. At least I didn't feel it had a lot of the satirical kind of qualities that Dawn of the Dead presents. And to be fair, I don't like many of the characters in it, the way they're kind of portrayed. Mad Foxes is one hell of a guilty pleasure, yes. See, that's a terrible movie that I can quite enjoy. I enjoy it enough that I got the VHS, so. It's over there somewhere. I completely agree there, John. I think you probably that's a pretty good basic summary of the film. The first half's pretty decent, and the second half just I don't know. It just feels like it slips into a quagmire. But I think the biggest problem with it, like I say, is the characters aren't particularly well done. Mad Foxes was messed up on so many levels. I think it's not so much messed up as it's a film that just has absolutely zero taste in it. It just really kind of I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's necessarily trying to be trying to push your buttons while it sort of is as well. I don't know. It's a tricky one to quantify in that kind of respect. But the amusing thing about it for me is literally that there is not one character in that film that you can like, except for maybe a couple of the girlfriend, or at least one of the girlfriends. He's just an absolute bastard. Yeah, it's kind of. Yeah, I always felt it was sort of member berry type stuff. Um, I don't think it's paying homage more as it's trying to kind of tickle the balls of existing fans. Um, I think there's much more elegant ways to pay homage to something than um, just putting little Easter eggs in there. And I always find, it's not just that film. There's so many films that do that kind of stuff, and it never feels clever. It always feels a little bit kind of like uh, it kind of feels like it's just sort of pandering. I mean, I think something like um, Jessica Harper's appearance in the remake of Suspiria is probably a more interesting homage. kind of zombied out these days, but watched a decent one recently. The Night Eats the World. Yeah, I seem to kind of enjoy that one actually. Yeah, I thought it was an interesting sort of take on it. But I think that's the thing with zombie films. You tend to find the better ones, the best ones, tend to be the ones that put the zombies in the background. They are not, literally for every shot, but they're there as a motivating thing. It's kind of like it's something that forces the characters that you're actually with to do things, and you see how they react. And that's the thing with Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and Day of the Dead. Half the time they're not even thinking about the zombies particularly. It's more about the living characters' interactions and how they sort of end up kind of letting these petty disputes create their downfall, as opposed to kind of concentrating on and teaming up against the zombies. I haven't seen Antlers, no. I need to get a cable. Sorry about that, it's a bit noisy. Need to get a cable for these. You can use these things wired. They're Bluetooth, but watching a film with these things on, because Bluetooth is really laggy. So they've never really managed to sort out. It's a very useful technology. It's just it's got its limitations, and it never seemed to have quite gotten over that. But I'll pick up a cable for that, and that'll do the trick. These things are a little uncomfortable. Get me out of here. There's an egg, but it's not an egg. Day of the Dead. Half of the cinema walked out when I saw that. Perhaps it was the kebab I was eating. If you've ever seen any of the remakes of Day of the Dead, it's like, oh my god, terrible. At least, for all the criticism I would give Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead, he made a far better film than any of the Day of the Dead remakes. She may be a cold hard scientist, but she's soft and pink and wet. Aren't there about 1 million Day of the Dead remakes? There's at least 3, I think. And a sort of pseudo sequel type one as well, apparently. Yeah, it's been a real problem. I've got a Bluetooth module and stuff like that, but it's intolerable to use it with my desktop. But for the sake of like I say, I'll pick up a cable. In fact, we might have a quick look now. Add to jack cable. Excuse me while I shop. Romero should have gotten huge royalties from all those rip-offs. Yeah, that's not how it works. Quite apart from anything, I think a lot of the rights issues that Romero had were down to the original kind of contract and stuff like that. But the rip-offs, as annoying as they are, you don't want to be in a situation where people can't make them. Copyright is already too easy to abuse by a long shot as it is. They definitely do not need more protection. Excuse me. You think she'd just throw a towel on the egg? Sorry, oval thing. Yeah, she's got a good shower curtain. That's going to be waterproof. Wrap it in the shower curtain, then throw it down the bog, put the lid on and stand on the lid. Big brain. I'd survive one of these movies, a piece of piss. I like the idea of Day of the Dead, but it does seem more of a canvas for Tom Savini to show his formidable makeup skills. I would disagree. I think there were very real aims that were that Romero was going for, and I think he succeeded for the most part. It's had somewhat of a critical kind of reevaluation over the years, but I've always really enjoyed it. It has a slightly different texture to like Dawn of the Dead, which is one of those things that people really complained about because it's not as overtly comedic, but it is a really heightened kind of atmosphere. You know, you can tell that in the acting and the delivery of the lines, and characters like Rhodes and the goons basically. But there is, you know, something being said in that. So I think it's a fantastic movie. well, Kieran, the thing is, you see, you're thinking that this script has actually undergone some revision, but no, it's probably just been shit out by someone like a Claudio Fragrasso, who has the one take approach to script writing, which, you know, I respect. And all I hear in the background is her going, and I just go, no, she's busy, we're fine. I'll just sit here and give up. Do you like the 90s remake of Night of the Living Dead? I don't like it as much as the original, but it was fine. I think the original was very much a product of its time. In fact, as you know, I mean, it was ahead of its time in some respects, I guess. Certainly on the horror scene and that kind of stuff. The type of story it was, the tone that it had, and all that kind of stuff. So for me, the Savini one is as I think I'd feel better about it if it had been an entirely original thing, if you know what I mean. Because I'm always going to compare it to the original. For Grasso, greater than Bad For Grasso's involvement in films has driven me away on more than one occasion. Hang on. I know it's a sort of ASMR kind of thing, isn't it? It's like one of those sleep tracks. Some people, go to sleep to the sound of the Starship Enterprise. The engines like that kind of low rumble like the ship always has. For me, it's this. It's not an egg. God, Richard. Fried eggs. Where the fuck did this come from? Nice one, Blue Eyes. Right back. Oh. I braved the laser field and I got beer. Funky. Gotta love some of these Italian exploitation soundtracks. He's gone, now we can play the forbidden music, yes. And this is where half the film's budget went, was on this little flight. Yes. Thank you, Richard. Love the emojis. Or it could mean that you're having an aneurysm. See that shot of the houses as he's driving along. That looks very familiar. I'm not sure if that's just another another shot that wasn't used in something like Zombie Flesh Eaters. It's like Dr. Butcher MD and Zombie Flesh Eaters has a whole bunch of common shots. I'm trying to think of the name of it. What was that other film? It's one of the Jess Franco films, Voodoo Passion. That has little bits which were taken in the same village or town. Not sure what it would classify as Zombie Flesh Eaters. Is there any horror films in the future you're looking forward to? I can't think of any off the top of my head. I tend to get very surprised by certain ones. When you get a film like The Lighthouse comes out and stuff like that, I usually kind of find out about it a little bit later on, and maybe get to see it at the cinema. Thing is, a lot of the horror films that I really like don't tend to get that much attention until way after release. Just Tony the Pimp. Zombie Holocaust is terrible, but as of the immortal line, "Patient screams disturb me," performed removal of vocal cords. Yes. Yes. It isn't a great film, that's for sure. Although you do notice the crossover between that and Zombie Flesh Eaters. It's like the church at the end is, well, the building that burns down at the end is the same building. There's a few pickup shots, like the Jeep driving through the village, all that kind of stuff. And that's the Italian film scene all over. Waste as little as possible. You got some spare shots that go into the vault. If you can film two films at the same time, go for it. Sometimes you shouldn't be filming two films at the same time, but you will do. And Jess Franco did that on a few occasions, and shall I say, shuffled the budget a little bit. I liked The Lighthouse. I thought it was a really kind of interesting film, and visually quite wonderful. Oh no. I watch a lot of these air crash investigation type videos on YouTube. It's fascinating to watch. Just want to see the one on this one. I mean, someone would be able to tell me probably there was a really good release of Dawn of the Dead recently. Now I've got the Anchor Bay one with the three different cuts of the movie and stuff in. I'm wondering how that compares. Although that's DVD, obviously, and the new release was Blu-ray. Can't you tell by my pistol? It's manly and assertive. It's a vengeful mouse chewing on the cables in the plane. Yeah, probably trained by Dr. Evil here. I want to see cannibals sort of like looking in the windows. Speaking of which, I've got to watch Man from Deep River again at some point, and Deodato's Cannibals as well, which is one of his films that often gets kind of neglected. But this does remind me of Cannibals quite a lot. Yeah, the second sight one. Well, I understand it's pretty good. Although I'm just kind of wondering if it's worth the upgrade. Because Dawn of the Dead is, it benefits. It's really quite good on DVD. Put it that way. But I'm wondering if the Blu-ray upgrade is it's kind of worth it. Because I wonder, when you start upscaling something like Dawn of the Dead, does it affect the movie? I mean, the worst DVD and Blu-ray releases tend to be from the major studios, in my opinion. They don't show an awful lot of love in the extras and stuff like that. Certainly not on DVD these days. Some interesting lighting going on in this scene. What a touching. First woman who couldn't get past first base. It's so romantic. Oh, he's melted her stone cold heart. Oh, absolutely, Kieran. I'm getting hold of when it gets to payday. I'm going to be getting hold of a portable Blu-ray player, so I can do screenings at work. One of the advantages of having the theatre that I work in is we can set up as a cinema of sorts. Was Al Cliver in that one? Are you sure you're not mixing it up? I don't think he was in that. I don't think he was. Yeah. Ivan Razumov, yeah, he was in there. Now that's a film I haven't seen, but I should see. I guess is Waves of Lust. That sounds right up my alley. Break out the fire extinguishers. I'll kiss her. It was a bit of a friend peck, wasn't it? Devil Hunter is a bit of a guilty pleasure of mine. I mean, Devil Hunter is a demonstrably bad film in so many levels, and it's like it's. I think even Jess Franco would have just basically said it's shit. It was one of his guns for hire type movies, but it's kind of amusing in how cheesy it is. I've grown to love it. Put it that way. I would love to have the original VHS, but they are extraordinarily expensive. Cannibal Terror is awful. I mean, truly, truly awful. If you're watching it, it's best to approach it in as ironic fashion as possible. He's looking a bit Doctor No, isn't he, really, in this? Yeah. Not the Cyclops. Franco went on record to say that he absolutely hated his zombie cannibal movies, literally, and he did them to keep a roof over his head. Yeah, and that's the kind of director he was. He just took work on it. In fact, that was the Italian film scene in general. There was a lot of directors kind of there just to churn out these films. It was very much a kind of factory. You got Franco on a set of one movie making that, and then while he could, he'd rejig a few little bits and pieces and do another scene for another movie. So absolutely maximising his time. So when he was doing the shit stuff, at least he was making cash. And I kind of go fair play to him. I still want to see that missing movie of his, though, which I believe, I do actually believe still exists, which is AIDS, a 20th Century Plague. I just want to see Franco's handling of that. That would be breathtaking, I imagine. Cannibal Terror was filmed on the same sets back to back with Franco's Mondo Cannibals. Yes, it was. You can see a lot of the same cannibals in it. Some distinctly Spanish looking cannibals. You're thinking of Primitives there, Richard, I think. Did it have an alternate title, Cannibal Terror? I thought that was the Jean Rollin one. No, Cannibal Terror, obviously, yeah. No, that's just Franco. No, you're thinking of Primitives. Oh, there's many, many missing Franco movies, by the way. There's like he did something like about over 200 movies in total. Although there's debate as to kind of like what actually counts as his filmography, because some of them were sort of rejigged and some of them were just confused because they got multiple titles. There's some of his films that have like literally a dozen different titles. But there's various projects which were kind of half made and abandoned, or have just been held back. AIDS, 20th Century Plague, is one of those that is apparently somewhere in the vaults of Eurocine, which, as I understand it, still exist. Genre, yeah. Savage Terror, that was the alternate title of it. Yes, thank you, Simon. He is so brutal on poor old Jess. The guy, when he was on his game, was a fucking genius. His earlier stuff, particularly, right up to probably up until the 80s, a lot of his stuff was actually really quite good. It was just very low budget. I would still contend that most modern day directors still don't have a film as well made and as pure a vision as something like Venus in Furs or She Kills in Ecstasy or it's Mother Brain. Oh, I agree, Kieran. The thing is, both of those directors, D'Amato and Franco, are better known for their shitter movies, but both are very, very capable of making some fantastic work. I need to get hold of some more Franco because there's a whole bunch of them for being released recently, which are very reasonably priced. It's Krang. I can't help it. It's so beautiful. No, not Tony. He was my favourite thing. Virgin Among the Living Dead is a mad dreamer film. It's actually a really good film, I think, that one, actually. Yeah. Um, it's Jess Franco's strength was that sort of very psychological kind of thing. Really is a mean green mother from outer space, this one. Get away from the light, Caroline. The funny thing is, though, Simon, this was obviously released before Aliens. I do wonder, genuinely do wonder, if James Cameron watched this and lifted a few ideas. Bear in mind, James Cameron came from a low budget movie kind of background, so the chances are he would have been watching films like this as well. Have you seen Brutes and Savages? Yes, I did. I reviewed it. Part of that interesting genre of Oh my god, that's kind of cool. Um, Part of that interesting Mondo genre kind of thing, isn't it? Cameron came from the Roger Corman School of Filmmaking, cut his teeth on Galaxy of Terror. Yeah, yeah. He was in some real kind of low budget stuff. It's amazing how many directors did. You know, you look at the current crop. James Gunn's right up there in that respect. Came from that very. I'll give it the most positive spin. It comes from that very liberated from having to worry about returns kind of school of filmmaking. What the trauma background and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, you know, of the directors that make the kind of stuff that he makes. You know, these mainstream type of superhero movie type things, that kind of thing. He's probably one of the best in terms of dealing with characters and all that kind of stuff. And that's where his major strength is it's the writing of the characters. And the feel for music, like I said that earlier. These eggs are now full of Dulux paint. It doesn't seem the most coherent life cycle, does it, really? These eggs sort of explode and then the people explode. And that's it. Not even one bullet left in that gun. Oh well. I'm hungry, Seymour. Feed me. I have a feeling we're breaking into a Pink Floyd song at this point of the soundtrack. Has that thing got two gobs? I think it has. Because if you want to make a monster particularly scary, you give it more than one mouth. That's just the rule. It's interesting lighting on this again. I'll give the lighting guy his credit in this movie. They got good value for money with this person. Well, Simon, we're at 1 hour 30 and 30 seconds. You could have had it all. You could have been eaten by the alien. It would have been beautiful. Oh. Seems like a weird reaction. Ah, damn you all to hell. These guys give up easy. They're all kind of, oh no. Amazing how quickly they give up when the kind of all-conquering, brain-eating, double-mouthed, cycloptic alien falls. Just shows you how simple the operation is and how vulnerable it is. Yeah. Front cover of the VCD of this I had. Okay. I'd love to have some of those alternate kind of formats and stuff like that. No space for it here. Though if I get my way, that might change. Hello, Kerry. I know you've been busy. Good to see you. Well, I'm not seeing you, obviously. But I see you with your little spanner. I was quite late notifying everybody. Well, setting this up, I have to apologise for that. I was been working quite hard today, but on editing and stuff. Not my stuff, it's stuff for work. It's been a bit of a week. I wasn't sure if I was going to do it today or tomorrow, but I decided on today just because, you know, I'm spontaneous. You can do a copy of the VCD. That would be interesting. See, this is the problem. In New York, they just throw anything on the street. So one of the things that makes me laugh with New York is like, well, my workplace takes a bunch of the students over to New York. It seems to be like a common, a more annual thing now. They take them over to New York to go to Broadway and things like that. I see New York, and it's like kind of the litter on the streets because of the way the disposal has to happen. There's not like an awful lot of back alleys and that kind of stuff. It's just like, oh my god. The only place I've ever seen anything quite like that was in Hong Kong. But yeah. But that was enjoyable. Yeah, I mean, it's not the first time we've done contamination, but yeah, that was quite good fun. I enjoyed that. Bad eggs, absolutely bad eggs. It's a silly movie. I mean, you kind of wonder how the hell it is that got caught up in the video nasties. It has a little bit of gore, but it's just so kind of ridiculous. It really is one of those you look at, particularly with today's eyes, and go, I mean, come on, it's not like Cannibal Holocaust. You can understand them. Why Cannibal Holocaust would have been like that. So we're on a movie over at, or is it Ramblaholic? We ended up watching Contamination. It's just finished, Kerry. But yeah. It's like, yeah, why not? Ah, dear. Definitely one of the sillier films. But you don't get any kind of bad feeling about that. About that movie. It's not a mean-spirited movie. It's just silly with lashings of gore thrown in. You can kind of look at something like that and The Evil Dead and those sorts of things. You always are going to wonder why the hell it is that those had a problem. Evil Dead's actually kind of a little bit more. There's more of a record of why the Bbfc treated it as badly as he did. There's less of a record when it comes to films like Contamination, and one wonders if they just kind of looked at who made it, and it's because that was a thing. Jess Franco was particularly kind of marginalised by the Bbfc. If they saw a film with his name on, they would pretty much automatically go, nope, and just chuck it out the door. What are you going to do? BBFC were not just doing their job, shall we say. They had their own agenda back in those days, and they're kind of like a little bit weird these days. They've taken a few steps back from being quite as transparent as they used to be. Certainly when it comes to their website, and the website is one of those things I think is probably their worst move, when they took all the kind of censorship history from it, the classification history, away from the website. They claim that you can still find that information, but it's like they made it so much harder, which is just not good. Not good. The 80s VHS cover was gory. Perhaps that was it. You know what? Let's have a look and see what that is. I don't remember it being that gory. Just cover. Yeah, moderately, but not hugely. Yeah. Yeah, I can sort of see why why you're coming from. They might have just picked up on that. It was one of those things, though. They did often kind of just pick up on the VHS covers. You see some of the movies that are out there, it's like kind of like like Driller Killer, for instance. The vast majority of that movie is pretty bloodless. Vast majority. And when there is blood, it's not generally terribly explicit. But the most explicit thing about it was the one scene that they put on the cover. But the rest of it's essentially an art house film. If Uncle Jess made a Disney movie, it would have been banned. Yes, yeah, they had their shit list. Put it that way. They weren't really interested in certain names. If certain names had crossed their desk, they would hold it against them, and that ran right up, up until Furman was gone. So yeah. Oh dear. You gotta love the 80s days of video covers. So I got so many scans of the old video cassettes, and of course I've got my collection down here, which is a little difficult for you to see and stuff. And there's a couple in there which weren't video nasties, aren't necessarily particularly rare, but I got because the cover work on the VHS was amazing. There was a cut version released on UK VHS with an unofficial Bbfc cert. Yeah, that was the thing. One of the things that not everybody realises is that the video industry tried to self-regulate to a certain degree. They were desperately trying to avoid having the Bbfc sort of stick their oar in. But so what happened was some distributors actually went to the Bbfc and sort of said, can you certificate this? Others just went, well, this is the cinema version, or this is the certificate that the cinema version was given, so we'll put an 18 or a 15 whatever on there. And others just went, yeah, we'll just put a 18 on there anyway. So they made an effort, but if you look at the news reports at the time, they really didn't. The press wasn't giving them any credit whatsoever. They were just going, these videos are violent and nasty. They will corrupt your children. They will corrupt your dogs. Furman used to fight tooth and nail to pass art films as complete as possible. To an extent, yes. Yes, he did. Actually, the biggest proponent in that respect of that was John Travalian back in the late 60s. He was a big supporter of the art house scene. When it came to, I think it was Andy Warhol's Flesh, he literally got out of bed one day when he in the middle of the night, I should say, and went down to a private cinema. It was like a cinema club in London to talk to the police who had just raided the venue. Because they were showing this thing. The BBFC couldn't pass it, but he kind of like said to him, look, chances are it's not legally obscene. You should be okay. And so he actually went down there and defended it. But then, particularly with Furman was actually quite progressive when it came to sex and stuff like that. He was one of the... in fact, I think he was the first person to really allow... real sex within the 18 certificate. There was those sex education videos that came out. So he was kind of like, interested in sort of allowing it where it was, in his opinion, justified by kind of like, I don't know, just by form or function in terms of like what it's trying to do. If it's trying to be serious about it, but he wouldn't want it to be kind of taken as a point of exploitation, because that was the thing he hated. He hated exploitation, whatever he deemed as exploitation. Furman was a pretentious twat. In some respects, yes. In other respects, it's actually quite an interesting guy, and I'm not defending him on any of his decisions necessarily when I say that. He had certain kind of likes and dislikes as human being and all that kind of stuff. Didn't always, in fact, a lot of his decisions weren't really kind of made on a level which was fair. It's just a lot of it was could he kind of justify it, not just to the public but to himself, the stuff that he released. So he wasn't necessarily the most critical of people in some respects. I think the worst thing he ever did was really kind of when he started kind of re-editing stuff. When he would get stuff and reorder it, and sometimes do it without the the person who submitted its permission. Yeah. He had been noted as being a wannabe filmmaker. And I think that was probably quite true. M12 Productions YouTube channel talks about the industry's lack of successful action on self-regulating. Yeah, it was a bit of a mess, but you got to remember also that it was a very new thing. There was the chancers and the people who were kind of like, fuck it, they'll pay money for it. There was also the people who were kind of like, I don't know what's actually legal. So there was these kind of varying well, this big spectrum of people that were kind of trying to deal with video and stuff like that. Some were like, this is genuinely not harmful. You might not like it, but it's not harmful. And there was the others who were just like trying to shovel it out the door, under the counter, whatever. Didn't really matter. But the Bbfc really just, didn't trust them, and the media didn't really give them any scope either. When you look at what the DPP were kind of like, hauling off the shelves and stuff like that, when they were raiding shops and they were picking up stuff like The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas and The Big Red One and various other titles that had potentially a suggestive bent to them. They had no idea. So the police had no idea. The government had no idea. The Bbfc only had the vaguest idea and were trying to save their own asses. Apart from anything else, one of the things that is very important is to realise that the Bbfc were struggling up until the VHS sort of came along, and then they jumped on board of that because it was a lifeline to them. It was a way of expanding. And they made a lot of money out of it. Whitehouse and her cohorts still hound about Furman and his administration being too lenient. Yeah, they always will. It is funny. He's like, when you, especially these days, you get kind of like a lot of right-leaning media going, it's the left that's censorious, and you can argue that the left these days is in some sections very censorious, but it's also true that the vast majority of the historical censorship scares and all that kind of stuff was driven by the right, the conservative end of things. Whitehouse was a fucking she was shockingly ambitious. There is a really good book that I've got on Mary Whitehouse, and it's interesting because a lot of people write her off as being well-intentioned, and I don't think she was, at least not entirely. While she might have believed some of that stuff, she was also very duplicitous and very ambitious. Video classification in Holland is entirely self-regulatory. Distributors rate and classify their own releases. Yeah, and the place hasn't burned down. As far as I know. Turn back title in white tape. Yeah, I must step back the conversation what you're talking about there. So the Best Little Whorehouse in Texas is classed as no, it's not actually classed as a nasty. Obviously, the thing is, at the time, it was a real kind of scramble. The police did not know what they were after. They had a list, but there was a whole bunch of other stuff which was not on the lists. Bear in mind, most of these lists were, anything between 45, 50 to like 120 titles, and considering how many titles were actually out there, that left a lot of scope. So under Section 3, what they could do is they could go to a magistrate and go, we believe this place has illicit videos that are potentially offensive. And the magistrate will either go get them, or I don't believe you, you need to do some investigation. When they went in, they tended to go, yeah, that looks horrible, that looks horrible, that looks like it might be porn, that looks like it could be dirty, this one could be obscene in general, this one could be blasphemous, because obviously in those days blasphemy was still a thing, and that was still a thing until when was it, like late 90s I think it was in this country. So they could just go in there, and they didn't have to have just a target. So they couldn't go, oh, that person had zombie flesh eaters in there, or that person had I Spit on Your Grave in there. We can go for those. They could go in there and they could pretty much clear the shelves. They were taking, on occasions, Disney films, I think, off the shelves. Pretty much clearing out a shop's stock, essentially, because one of the things they could do is go, oh, they might change the labels on them. Now, but they had a real kind of burden on them when they did that, right? Because in order to get a case through the courts for obscenity, which is what they had to go through the Obscene Publications Act, because this is pre-VRA, so there was no legal requirement for them to be certified. They would have to watch each and every film. Now, if they went into that video store and took 150, 200 films off the shelves, then they would have to kind of sit through those things and then decide how far they wanted to kind of sit for all those movies. So even if they had like 4 copies of Evil Speak and 4 copies of Dumbo that they'd seized, to prosecute on those things, they would actually have to sit and watch each and every one. So they'd have to watch Evil Speak 4 times and Dumbo 4 times. Because the Obscene Publications Act is as much about the physical item as it is about the content. If it isn't against the law, it isn't illegal. Not every country is as prudish as the UK. The UK is not necessarily that prudish. There are plenty of countries that are far more prudish. Funny enough, I went to the Middle East. To Dubai, and you go on. At the time when I was there was lots and lots of shops that would sell bootlegs. So you're going to think it's called Billboard, and they're all kind of like, you know, clear knockoffs. You know, it's really cheap. It's printed. The labels are printed on cheap paper and stuff like that. So they've got like a recording thing at the back, and it's just a way of kind of printing out covers, which aren't the original covers. I got they got movies like Rambo and stuff like that, which are pretty much uncut. Any movie with sex in would be cut. I picked up a copy of the soundtrack to Beverly Hills Cop 2, and of course one of the tracks on that is I Want Your Sex by George Michael. It's not on that. It's not on that album. Not when you buy it over there. Because, you know, they're prudish about sex in the Middle East. Problem with White Houses think they're doing good when they're actually behaving like Nazis, but they don't realise because they're in the right. Yes. Just trying to find a comment. Okay. There we go. It's much the same with these lefty SJWs. I try to avoid the label SJW because it tends to be a very broad hammer. You can definitely describe some people as that. There's a whole range of different motivations and stuff like that. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, tastes and sensibilities do change over time. It's one of those things. We're in a very different place to when I was a child. That's a for instance. And I think the most consistent historically has been more conservative kind of elements, especially when it comes to something like VHS. You know, because VHS really did sort of change the landscape massively so, as did the audio cassette. Suddenly you were able to go out and buy these things. And when it came to film, there wasn't an awful lot of options before VHS. There were a few things which had come out. You could buy stuff on like 16mm film or whatever, or if you're a serious collector, you could actually sort of buy the reels legally or otherwise. I mean, there was a time when the police would raid your house if they suspected you had reels of movies in your house, because they claimed that they were bootlegging. The studios were very, very active in trying to hammer down on collectors and stuff like that. There's multiple stories of film collectors being raided by the cops in the US and in Britain. And it's like the VHS changed the scene radically, and I would not be at all surprised. I mean, there was a certain amount of kind of like studio collaboration in various aspects of this stuff until they started getting bitten on the arse. But there's a reason why, most of the attention was really kind of drawn towards smaller independent producers, companies, directors, yada yada yada. White House wasn't a fucking Nazi, very conservative and censorious, yes, but not a genocide. Well, she's not genocidal, but I think she was an incredibly manipulative and ambitious person. I don't know how pure her motivations were. I don't think they were as pure as she would like you to think they are. And, you can... I'll see if I can find the book, actually. Let me have a look on... see if I can find the book on Mary Whitehouse. Oh, god damn it. Why is it doing that? Damn it. Get on there. In books. That's the one. Right. Let me just share this with you. So that's the one. Ban this filth. Letters from the Mary Whitehouse Archive. Very good book. Very interesting. And it's only $6.99 on paper. Hardcover is $3.39. That's interesting. Anyway, there you go. You have these angry people on social media try to get you fired. It happens in all directions, though. That is not just a leftist thing. There's plenty of conservatives who indulge in cancel culture as well. That's a symptom of the internet. A lot of these kind of opinions have existed, for a very, very long time, way before the internet. It's just it's more amplified because we have social media and all that kind of stuff. I've long said that we as a society, as a species, haven't got used to the fact that we have this incredible megaphone. If this, if we were right now, 30 years back, you'd never have heard of me. I wouldn't have any of you watching because A, YouTube doesn't exist, and B, the kind of subject matter that I do would generally kind of preclude me from public exposure. So it's a double-edged sword. You get the good and you get the bad. That's the tricky thing, is to kind of not only be aware of that that's something that other people do, but it's also something that you are capable of doing. No, I don't think cancel culture is necessarily deemed acceptable. Its own not even when the radical left's doing it. And the only thing is, when you're talking about that kind of stuff, there are some genuinely awful people that have been caught out by it. Have innocent people been caught out by it as well? Yes, but I mean, when you look at it in terms of kind of like, is this a new phenomenon in that respect? Just look at some of the yellow journalism that's happened since the printing machine has existed. You want the ultimate in cancel culture, then look at Citizen Kane and what happened to Orson Welles. That gives you a good example of that mechanism being a very historical kind of thing. Previous to that, you offended the wrong rich person, then you would be blackballed, or whatever. You'd be kind of you'll never find work in this town again, that kind of thing. You know, there's a reason why that phrase exists. Cancel culture is just a modern part of that. And like I say, it happens on both ends, and it's deemed acceptable by whichever audience happens to be on whichever side. It's an awful thing sometimes. Yeah, it's kind of jury by opinion, isn't it? And, you know, I always kind of struggle with that whole kind of idea of what is the radical left. I mean, yes, there is a radical left, but is there an awful lot of influence that the radical left have that the radical right don't have? Yeah. I look at, like, you know, the Ben Shapiro's and all that kind of the people, the Fox News, or even when you go to the more extreme end of it, you see some of the right, hard right-leaning news channels like Newsmax. I say news, like Newsmax in America, and they indulge in that sort of stuff all the time, and they have a very, very vocal audience that follow them, very ardent audience, a lot of whom have guns and are willing to go down to the Capitol and riot. Good example. Yeah, no, I know, Simon. It's not the best place to try to kind of figure those things out, but I guarantee you, it's a two-way street. It's not a one-way street. People have been shitty to each other for years and years and years, and it ain't just today, and it ain't just the left, ever. But as it's getting a little heavy now, I think we ought to perhaps, you know, before it gets uncivil, call it an evening. I've enjoyed it. I don't think we've kind of got to a point where it's got nasty or nothing. It's always interesting to talk about this stuff. But let's draw this to a close. Ban this filth. If you want to have a good read of some good violence, Mary Whitehouse might say. Ban this filth. Letters from the Mary Whitehouse Archive. It's very interesting and actually quite illuminating. So definitely check that out if you can. It's cheap enough to get hold of. There's plenty of copies knocking around for under £1, in fact, if you're so willing. But I will say, I'll say good night. Have a good weekend. We'll try to get some. I keep saying this every fucking week. I'm doing this. I will try to get that bloody video done. It's been a tough one. It's been a tough one, not because it's hard to write about, because there's so much to write about, and I'm trying to not be a blithering idiot when it comes to that stuff and just rambling on in the worst way possible, like I am right now. But I am pretty close. When is the next streaming? I'm hoping next week. The week after, I will be hopefully going up to see my brother, unless the world explodes. I will have to take my thermal underwear because, quite frankly, it's going to be cold up there. I might just get some of those heat pad things, stick them all over my body, and just activate them all at the same time. And I'll just sit in there, absolutely comfortable as hell. He does his best to keep the place comfortable for me when I do turn up. I'm just a bit of a pussy in that respect, I guess. Yeah. Bonne nuit. Bonne nuit. Have a good night. Have fun. And for the love of God, no hard feelings about any of the stuff that I just going to talk about at the end. It's always interesting to talk about. I'll see you on Facebook, and we'll have a bit of a talk on Ramblaholics at some point about what we'll do next week, whether we just kind of chat or whether we'll watch a movie. I'm sure there'll be something that we can come up with that. So take your setup to Gaz's and do one from there. I have done the stream from Gary's place before, but he's not as comfortable in front of the camera as I am, so he probably wouldn't want to do that. But I will say good night to you guys. Take care, have a beer, whatever. Chill out, relax, watch a goddamn movie. And I will see you, all being well, next week. So take care, folks. I'm going to find the end card in a second.